Welcome back. So I thought of what the series that I'm doing here reminds me of. About 6 years ago, I believe it was 6 years ago, I did a series on how good is it, how bad is it for certain teams, and I'd make it how good is it if it was a team that was going to be in the playoffs, how bad is it if it was a team that we didn't think was going to make or I didn't think was going to make the playoffs. In this case, it feels like it's a how bad is it video. That's what reminded me of it is putting this board together for the Calgary Flames. This could be a long season for Calgary, and as a Canuck fan, you would think, oh, he's got to be really happy the Flames are down. Not really. I much prefer when Calgary's really good, and those battles between Calgary and Vancouver over the years have been epic. So I hope that for the Flames, this is more of a retool than a rebuild. I'm technically not wearing a Calgary Flames jersey. I'm wearing a Wranglers, but you know what? It's such a nice jersey. I was gonna get the white Wranglers. I was like, I don't have a white Wranglers. And then I saw this one. I'm like, yeah, I'll get that one instead. So the Calgary Flames right now have a lot of cap space. So I wouldn't rule out them doing something with it. Now, whether that's picking up a bad contract, whether that's trying to go out and maybe make a couple of improvements on the ice, we'll see. Odds are they may very well be a place where you park a contract of a player who isn't, living up to their contract, right? So the cap space they have is $20,824,166, according to Puckpedia, because Cap Friendly is gone. So Puckpedia says almost $21 million in cap space. It's a pretty good chunk of change right there, right? And when you look at the top six, honestly, I don't think the top six is that bad. Like I've seen people basically saying that Calgary is going to be really, really bad and they might be the worst team in the league. I don't know. It's hard to predict who's going to be the worst team in the league, but I do think this top six, we could see more goals out of it than expected. Starting with Jonathan Huberdeau. Is his contract good? We'll talk about it, but spoiler alert, no. But the reality is that he's still a player that can put up 65, 70 points, hopefully can bounce back into point per game range. But yeah, Huberdeau's contract is a wait, and yet they still have almost $21 million in cap space. So there you go. Backlund, their captain. Backlund, I don't think is going anywhere. Backlund's a pretty good producer. Not great, not star level, but good. And Coleman, at times this past season, Blake Coleman was dragging Calgary to victories. He was easily, I felt, their most valuable player this past season. I thought Coleman was fantastic at points as well. And so, yeah, Connor Zary is going to get his opportunity to play. He's going to get some minutes. Pospisil may get some minutes as well. And then Sharon Govich or Kadri end up being on that second line as well. The fact that Kadri might end up being on the third line, sure, maybe Sharon Govich's second line. Maybe Kadri ends up on the first line. But either way, the fact that Kadri's in that mix, it might be part of the reason why there's been rumors that Kadri could be on the move. And then you've got Mantha or Kuzmenko on that second line. Kuzmenko had a pretty good run with Calgary offensively. Mantha had a tough time after that trade to Vegas. But I mean, it's not an awful top six. I think there are worse top sixes both in the West and the East. The defense, that's where things get kind of thin. The loss of Tanev via trade, the fact that, a lot of players have left this team, and we will talk about just how many players have left this team over the last couple of years. This blue line, it could be a rough year for the goaltenders. Weegar, Anderson, very likely to be your top guys, but you've got Ball, you've got Bean, you've got Miramanov, you got Pahal. So this could be a long season for the goaltenders in Calgary, but they may score enough goals to stay in games and win some games here and there, especially if either Vladar or Wolf can steal games. I think both goaltenders are good. I think Vladar had a rough season. With Markstrom gone, maybe Vladar has a bounce back year. Maybe he'll go out there and play the way he did a couple seasons ago. And I like Wolf a lot. I know that we're going to see a focus on his height quite often. We see that with Saros. I think we'll see that with Wolf too, that when he starts a game, you're going to hear announcers say, and here's the diminutive Dustin Wolf. He's only 6 feet tall in the league, dominated by goaltenders 6'4" and taller, which is true, but it can get a little bit, it just gets repetitive. And it's one of the reasons I'm bringing it up here, because I know it's going to happen. I know it's coming. So the general manager, Craig Conroy, I think has done a good job of selling off assets. The problem is selling off assets is relatively easy-ish, right? going through the teardown is relatively easy. It's the building back up. Now, Ryan Huska, I thought, did a decent job as the coach in the first year. Now with the roster that's clearly been weakened over the last couple seasons, it's really hard to measure how good a coach is when the roster that he's in control of and running and deploying isn't very good. And so that's where I think Huska is going to need some time. But, I mean, San Jose fired their coach, so we'll see how much time they give Huska behind the bench in Calgary. He's just had the 1 year so far. I would think he gets through year 2, but does he see year 3? Again, coaches are hired to be fired. Now, they filled 2 of their 3 salary retention slots. It's worth mentioning because in the event that they decide to try to move Kadri, I would think that the team that they would trade him to is going to want to see that salary cap hit get dropped a little bit. And it gets difficult because they have filled 2 of their 3 retention slots. And if they fill that 3rd slot with a Kadri trade, that means that they can't broker a trade this year at the trade deadline for another team and be that third party. But is it more important to move Kadri if you get the chance, or to have that extra retention slot so you can be a broker at the deadline? They have 2 firsts in 2025 and 2026, again, going by Puckpedia. I'm going to get used to normalize myself saying Puckpedia. It's going to take a little bit of time. If they could just, like email me stickers, like just something I can print out on the computer so I can stick it on my forehead. Anyways, just so I don't keep saying, because I know I'm going to slip it. We all know I'm old. I'm going to slip into cap friendly. But yeah, they have first round draft picks. I think they're going to add more draft picks this coming year. Jonathan Huberdeau's money basically guarantees he's a Flame. Unless his play gets better, I don't see any way that contract gets moved. It's a $10.5 million cap hit till 2031. So no movement, no trade. None of it matters when you've got a cap hit teams don't want. So you can say, well, if he waives, there's no movement. If he waives, it doesn't matter. It's an unmovable contract right now, especially since teams that maybe were looking to bring on some money, usually they're not looking to bring on that money for that period of time. So 2031 is a long way out. That's going to stay. So for Calgary, it's in their best interest to try to get Huberdeau straightened out. Nazem Kadri's cap hit is $7 million until 2029. He's 33 years of age. So for Kadri, who's had a good productive season this past year in Calgary, and I think he's been a good player, the reality is that when you're in your mid-30s, you've played a physical style of hockey, usually you'll break down, and that's where you see the drop-off in play. So that's a problem for Calgary. If they can get Kadri moved, I think they'll do it as soon as possible. Kuzmenko, $5.5 million cap hit for this 1 year. He's a free agent next summer. We'll probably see him get moved by Calgary during the season. That $5.5 million cap hit is okay for Kuzmenko. I think the one thing that might surprise people is he is 28 years of age. His rookie year in Vancouver, not that long ago, of course, but he's not a young player. Not by NHL standards. Young, you're looking at around 23 and under, right? So Kuzmenko, what you see is what you get. You're getting a 30-goal scorer who's not big on the defensive side of the game, pretty much all offense. He's a great team guy. He's very popular. The fans love him. His teammates love him. But I don't know what Kuzmenko's going to draw in trade value should they decide to move him at the deadline. Mackenzie Weegar, 30 years of age, and a $6.25 million cap hit until 2031. The last of the contracts I wanted to spotlight here, I think Weegar's been good in Calgary. That being said, that cap hit till 2031, we'll see how that ages. One thing to keep in mind with them having almost $21 million in cap space, Dustin Wolf is a restricted free agent this summer, so they need to get a contract extension done with Wolf. Now that I've said it in the video, it'll happen 20 minutes from now. But they missed the playoffs by 17 points this past season. Clearly, they are in the midst of a rebuild or retool, and we'll see if they keep selling players. This is where you find out. So is this going to be just a quick rebuild or a long rebuild? And if they keep selling players, this could be a long rebuild for Calgary. Like we're talking 5, 6, 7 years, like what Detroit's gone through, what Ottawa's gone through. And it's difficult to pull yourself out of that once you've got into it. So we'll see what Craig Conroy does and just how many of the veterans he ends up moving out. They won the division in 2021-2022, 2 seasons ago. That's it. But if you look at how many players have left, and I even kept track of where they were in the team scoring during that season, their numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 9, 10, and 11 scorers are gone. Starting with Johnny Gaudreau, then Matthew Tkachuk, and then Elias Lindholm. Well, there's your top line. That's gone. The Tkachuk deal, of course, gets them back Huberdeau. The Lindholm deal gets them back Kuzmenko. And Gaudreau left as a free agent. Got them back nothing. Mangiapane is gone as well. They trade him during the summer. Hanifin is gone to Vegas. Signs a long-term extension with Vegas. Dubé, of course, with his legal trouble. Not qualified by Calgary, so we'll see if that clears up, if they're acquitted on the charges, do these guys come back to the NHL? I haven't really been touching on it because we just don't know. But Dubé wasn't having a good season before he left the team, and then all that mess goes on. Shillington is technically still an unrestricted free agent. There's always the chance Shillington ends up back in Calgary. Tanev, of course, he's in Toronto now. They traded him to Dallas at the deadline. Toffoli's gone. He was a rental that year. Monahan is gone. Well, he wasn't a rental. Anyways, Monahan is gone, of course. He went to Montreal and then to Winnipeg. Zadorov is gone. He went to Vancouver and now to Boston. Lucic, of course, got signed by Boston. Gabranson ended up in Columbus. Lewis went back to L.A. Ruzicka's gone. Markstrom is over in New Jersey. Valimaki went to Arizona, who turned him around. Valimaki, honestly, would be a nice upgrade, I think, over some of the options here on the blue line. Though I will say this, Miramanov looked better in Calgary than he ever did in Vegas. And if Miramanov can start the season how he finished it in Calgary, he could be a pretty productive blue liner. They need that. They don't have much production on the blue line in terms of that offensive will. And so we'll see whether or not Miramanov can get that full 82 games in, and if he plays as well as he did down the stretch for Calgary. Yarncroke was a rental, and then Michael Stone, who is now in team development. So he's still with the organization, just not as a player. This is a team that is definitely right now on the outside looking in for this coming season, and I don't see it necessarily getting better. I guess the question I have for people watching this is simple. So we know San Jose went out and made some improvements in the offseason, right? And they may still make some improvements going into this season. Can San Jose or Anaheim bridge the gap and end up catching Calgary this season? Is this the year where Calgary does actually drop down to the bottom of the division? And what happens then? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below regarding the Flames. Where they're at, where they're headed, and how long do you think this rebuild's going to take? Just with what they've done, I would say a minimum of 2 to 3 years. If they keep selling off players this season, then your expectation is maybe 6 years. So let me know your thoughts. Hit like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Thank you guys so much for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.